All right, so I'm gonna talk about recruiting. Since I was the oldest, y'all know this, I didn't get recruited much, and you're like 5'6", and you got recruited, and you're not that fast, and you got recruited. So talk to me a little bit, like how is that recruiting process? What was scary? What schools recruited you? Talk a little bit. How do you differentiate yourself? Because if you didn't physically, you wouldn't have stood out.
No. I remember, I think I was 15, I got the first letter in the mail from Wichita State. And I was like, man, I've arrived.
Heck
Any
yeah.
15-year-old Wichita State, I was hyped. I was really excited because I was getting some big ones like Alabama and Wichita State were sending me letters, but no coaches were still offering or showing up. But honestly, I met Coach McKay, and anyone who knows Coach McKay, Jesse knows him, he's got charisma, he's got all the pizzazz. I was pretty much sold, and I remember Dad telling us.
Was he at Liberty at that time?
Yeah, he was at Liberty at the time, and he's like, hey, you want to play for the man, not necessarily the school. And so Pops really helped out guiding what we want to do, because I actually ended up signing, I guess, committing when I was in my sophomore year. And so I remember the excitement, but I really didn't pursue much else.
You ended up going to Liberty, right? But who else?
Yeah.
Who else was like talking to you?
Wichita State actually did end up offering. Jesse was going to Rice at the time, so they offered. Honestly, I think I was getting a lot of big looks because I think people thought I was going to get bigger. So just being real, I could score, but I think people assumed, hey, 6'2", 6'3", and kind of capped out at like whatever, 5'11", 6 foot. But I could score, so I did have other looks. But Wichita State, and that, man, it's crazy. Because that's the team that was the 1 seed in 2013.
Yeah,
they had Fred Van Vliet. They had a couple of Tequila Cotton, I think was his name. They had dudes, and I don't know if I ever would have played, but that would have been the team I would have been on. So that would have been crazy.
In high school, I feel like sometimes it was, I guess, kind of getting passed over at times. But I remember it was pretty easy to weed out the kind of foolish recruitment. A lot of guys were coming in with their list of 20 questions, asking me my favorite movie and favorite color and what I like to eat. And I was like, this is ridiculous. But I remember taking official visits, and that was where I really got to, again, kind of what you were saying on Dad, is getting to know the character of the man that was leading that program. And when you go to that campus, talk with those players, be in that locker room, that was a real indicator. So I get questions from guys a lot, as I'm sure both of y'all do. How do you differentiate yourself if the college coaches aren't knocking on your door, they're not sitting at your games? How do you make yourself known? What is it? Highlight tapes? Is it AAU scene? What was it for you?
I think the thing that I would start honing in on was I wanted to be a specialist at something. And I would say, like, early on in high school, I was a big point guard. And so that gave me a little bit of gap. So I was tall, I could play the point, and so it gave me a little differentiator. I got to college, they moved me into a wing. So what do I do with it? And that changed with each season. So then I was like, well, I'm not playing me at point, so now I'm kind of a dime a dozen. So I started, for me at that season, trying to become a lockdown defender. Coaches were like looking, and so I was always trying to find a niche on my roster, like, hey, where can I break open a spot? And even as I got into the pros, some team by team, like some teams I get stuck in a corner, and you'd be a corner 3-point shooter. So that season, I would try to master that skill. So it's finding a niche where I became a specialist, where I earned a spot on it. So kind of frustrating, because if you're a star, you always get the ball. I don't know, that wasn't always my story. And so I was always trying to find a niche where that team needed it.
Now, Cade, what would you say? How much like dope highlight tape, does that do it for you?
Mine was different because I was a scorer. And so I was always trying to perfect my little craft of scoring at my size. I wasn't a true point guard. And I was
clear. You didn't
I didn't really pass all the much. But I had a skill set that I could score. I could shoot and I could score. So everything was honed in to how can I be the best scorer? Because even at my best, I'm a mediocre defender. I can do the right things, but sometimes my size just limits me on what I can do defensively. So I can score in every facet of the game is what I always tried to focus on. So my feet and my balance, I remember every workout I would go in, it was after you had graduated. In my senior year, we'd go into practice at 7 a.m. We would go in at 5:45, and we would work on our feet, and we would literally make these moves and just intentionally foul each other, and to get back on balance and then finish at the rim. A lot of dudes watch like Steph and Clay and all these things, and they can lead, but I always want to make sure my feet are coming back down at my same spot. So everything that I did was based off my balance and my ability to score. My niche was a scorer, and that's where I knew I could be the most efficient, and that's what I focused on.